Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2019. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com. It is August the 15th, 2019. It is 10 after 4 o'clock out here on the West Coast in Las Vegas. That means it is a little after 7, 10 after 7 outside of Pittsburgh, where my co-host and partner in crime, Alex Kozora, is fresh off of one final trip to Latrobe for the year. And I reminded Alex before we got on that just think he doesn't have to make that drive for a whole nother year now. So Alex, with that, fantastic, absolutely fantastic job this year you did as usual. And happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday, Dave. Yeah, credit to McLumina for getting through it another year. She's made it. But yeah, it was a really good camp. I mean, it's hard to complain about the weather. I know a little bit of rain today that got the players off the field early. The other day it poured, but just overall a great camp. No major injuries, good competition. I wrote about the article this morning. We'll probably talk more about it tomorrow on the podcast, that there's depth in so many places that it's a good problem to have with some of these tough decisions. So can't be mad about anything that happened in Latrobe this year.
And 6 years today, right? 6-year anniversary with Steelers Depot. How about that?
I think our first article was on Jarvis Jones against the Giants, and we've come a long way, Dave.
And
I've outlasted Jarvis Jones. I'm sorry,
you absolutely have outlasted Jarvis Jones. Congratulations on that as well, too. Yeah, look, obviously blessed to have you, but it's been so long I don't even remember how it all went down initially, but we'll save that story for the 10-year anniversary of that. But as always, I think you and I and Matthew have find a way to work together like no other, three people probably can, doing what we do. And it's always like the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. And I saw a picture today, and evidently you have 3 arms and hands.
Courtesy of Tim Rice.
Yeah, courtesy of Tim Rice, who, by the way, did a fantastic job for us once again this year. So we'd like to take our hat off and hand it to him again. And also Lynn Test and the guys at Touring Plans, who we'll tell you a little bit more about towards the end of the show. They were once again one of our main sponsors for getting Alex out to training camp, and the many people who donated again this year as well too to the cause. We thank them as well too.
Really quick, Dave, I did get a shout out request talking to some fans today. I promised them that I would shout them out on the podcast. Some Jersey fans coming in from New Jersey the other day, Mike Prince and Dana Jefferson. So thank you guys for saying hi at camp today, and big Steelers contingency out there in Jersey apparently.
And that's Matthew Marksy's neck of the woods, right?
Oh yeah. They're probably not friends, but Matthew, go say hi to Mike Prince and Dana Jefferson.
Matthew don't leave the house. He's like
that's
us.
What I'm saying. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. We got a little bit of housekeeping to take care of, and as usual, you were the first person to spot there being a different human out there in a Steelers jersey, and come to find out there were 2 new humans out there in Steelers jerseys today, and that meant 2 more had to be waived to make room for them. The team signed tight end Mickey Crum and linebacker Christian Kuntz. That sounds like Chess Rockwell and Dirk Diggler, those characters on that crime fighting team. It just the names kind of hit you funny. I had to double check, and I my source when I was reading it right to make sure it was someone wanting to pulling the wool over my eyes there. But Mickey Crum out of Louisville, tight end, came out undrafted this year, and linebacker Christian Kuntz out of Duquesne, where he played I guess technically defensive end there, but he's obviously an outside linebacker. He's in the same mold basically as a Sutton Smith. I mean, you almost got another version of Sutton Smith here. A little bit lesser pedigree though in Christian Kuntz, who can long snap as well too. So you want to talk about some position flexibility? First thing that popped in my head is, I wonder if there's something wrong with Cameron Canaday. But you assured me that he he was working today there. So I mean, he's definitely being brought in to play some outside linebacker for him to make room on the roster. Now, look, the reason they added Mickey Kroom to tight end is because they have short lines. Zach Gentry was not practicing today, neither was Christian Scotland Williamson. And look, you're going to need a few more bodies than that this weekend against Kansas City, because I don't think you're going to see Vance McDonald much, if any, in this game. And obviously, you're probably going to want to get Xavier Grimble a little bit of work and get him out of that game as well, too. So you need some bodies in there. So that's why Mickey Kroom was signed. I don't understand the swapping of the linebackers, though, outside linebackers, though. They released the cornerback Jermaine Ponder, who was just added like eight or 9 days ago, and they also waived, or both of them were waived J.T. Jones, the outside linebacker, who I thought had an okay showing the other night, and I think you even said he blocked a punt during or tipped a punt or something like that in practice yesterday. I was for sure by the time the official NFL transaction sheet rolled around to me this afternoon that I would see J.T. Jones waived injured, but that was not the case. He was just a flat out waive. So I don't know if something might have happened there. I don't know, but they swapped outside linebackers. They released Jermaine Ponder, which that's understandable with these cornerbacks getting all healthy, and they added the tight end in Mickey Kroom, and they needed that.
With Jones, he had a decent start to camp, but I think he's one of those classic cases of somebody that starts off strong, and then as the grind and the wear and tear of camp really hits, he starts to fade. I thought against Tampa Bay he was pretty quiet, and he did have the block punt yesterday, but I just think he was one of those guys that just couldn't strain to the finish line, maybe the way that they were hoping this team to. So unfortunate for him.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about camp, but I don't know if we've when is the last time somebody added this late in the process has made a 53.
Let me double check. Zach Banner was signed, I think, on August 12th last year. Let me double check that. So it's happened. LJ Fort was late signed. I mean, not that I expect these guys to make the team,
right,
but it's happened. I was just thinking about that with Banner. That's a good point, because Banner was a pretty. You know who got waived for Zach Banner to get signed? Do you remember the name? I'll give you $1 million if you remember the name of this guy.
Lord.
That brought Banner into the fold, because someone got hurt. Yeah, it was August 12th last year that Zach Banner got signed, so 3 days earlier.
And I'm trying to remember.
So it was offensive lineman that was waived injured.
And it was probably in around July or so.
This guy was signed during camp, August 2nd, and then he got hurt, and they cut him on the 12th for Zach Banner. It was Kyle Meadows.
Oh, Kyle Meadows. Yeah, okay.
Tiny interior guard guy. And then Banner got signed. So, yeah, I mean, Banner was a real late ad last year and then ended up making the team.
Okay, with that housekeeping out of the way, look, we'll probably see both those guys maybe a little bit. But you're probably not.
You will. They were in team today. I think they're trying to get a practice in so these guys can play on Saturday.
Here's your playbook. Go get busy.
Pretty much.
All right. Why don't you let us know who did not work today?
And hey, one practice, that's more than Trayvon Mathis got last week. So, hey, one practice is all you need, I guess. For the injury report, not practicing today with David Castro, with, I guess Tomlin keeps calling it just general soreness. Christian Scotland Williamson, left hamstring, he won't play this weekend. Zach Gentry with, I think it's a chest, upper body, maybe some sort of rib strain, I'm not sure. Muscle strain. He's probably not going to play.
Yeah, he's probably not going to play, is he?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he did. BJ Finney weirdly didn't go today. I know he had the heat issue yesterday, but I thought he would come back today. He did not. He was out there, but did not practice. Joe Hayden with that ankle foot. He's got a compression sleeve on his right leg from the knee down, so that's or he's at, but he's fine. I mean, I think he's going to come back for the third game. Mark Barron, I think it was just rest today, and then Ola Adeni for some reason did not go today either. Vince Williams didn't work in individual or team. He got a tiny bit of work in the start of practice, just kind of messing around with TJ Watt, but he's going to be fine. And that's the guys that weren't going. Practicing in full were Sutton Smith, Devin Bush, and Marquise Pouncey. So good news for all three of them.
Oh, definitely good news for Sutton Smith. He needs to get back on that field like Sands. Tomlin gave us the old Sands through the hourglass.
Yeah, Sutton should play against the Chiefs. I think we'll play.
All right, well, that's good news too, there, and it looks like sounds like Deontay Johnson will play this week as well too, right?
Oh yeah, he's 100% going to play.
All right, so we expect Pouncey, DeCastro, Ben, probably McDonald, Juju, Connor. Yeah. Who else?
Yeah, I mean the line maybe like I said, Foster probably won't play. Maybe they play Villanueva a little bit. It'll be similar. I think defensively is where you see some of more of the starters play. Tuitt may play. Sean Davis will play. Maybe Steven Nelson gets a couple of reps in. Defense is where you might see some of the starters get some work in.
And obviously, we won't see Hayden and
right.
Some of the Mike Tomlin only ruled out Ben Roethlisberger, but we know how that goes. He's going to leave the light on for everybody else there. But and you said Devin Bush was back today, so it sounds like he's going to go as well too there.
Yep.
So the inactive list, the total, even though you don't have to file an inactive list, the post game did not play list should be a little bit shorter. Mike Tomlin said during his press conference this morning that some of the guys who didn't play last week will play this week, and he also told us something that we predicted, and we didn't have to be rocket scientists to predict that is Mason Rudolph will get the start against the Chiefs. Very, very excited to see that. He'll be relieved by Joshua Dobbs, and the current plan once again is to get Devlin Duck Hodges some. It sounds funny saying that, but I cannot not say it now. He said he intends on getting him, some time, in this game as well too. Play, a game scenario, being favorable in that. Obviously something can change, and you want to see something out of another quarterback in a certain situation and all. But at this point, being he's kind of laid it out that way, I would expect Hodges to play, 16, 17, 18 snaps, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I'm thinking at least a quarter, or about a quarter for him is probably going to be the plan.
All right. What else did Mike Tomlin say? Or we'll leave the rest of that to recap during the podcast in the morning. Being as how we're going to do that and preview the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll go position by position. Easy for me to say. Position group by position group one last time, and we will start with the offensive line.
Not a ton to note there. I thought Gerald Hawkins has had a slightly better couple of practices, including the Tampa Bay game. I thought he did all right. So I thought he's maybe a little bit of that rust that he dealt with early in camp. Still see him outside in right now. I still see Zach Banner is jumping over him. And then it's just funny that we mentioned it yesterday on the podcast, and it happened very late in practice today. But Derwin Gray getting his first snaps at tackle, 2 or 3 at the end of practice today. Got him at left tackle. Damian Prince kicked over to right tackle, but I agree that they viewed Gray as a guard.
Shout out to Sean Surratt for listening to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Gray should play a good bit against Casey. He's going to get a lot more than 6 snaps. I think he's going to come in second team right guard, so you'll get a really decent look at him that you didn't have last week.
You think we will see Foster in this one, and maybe some Villanueva?
Maybe Villanueva. I really doubt on Foster. I personally, I wouldn't play Villanueva, but you could see him in there. If you're not going to see Pouncey, you're not going to see DeCastro. I doubt you see Foster, so it'll be Filer and the gang.
Okay. Anything else to add offensive line one last time? Who's the guy in that position that surprised you the most this camp?
In a good way or a bad way or either way?
Yes.
Surprise. Well, Fred Johnson, I think, is just. I mean, I know I liked him.
We knew we liked him going into this, right?
Well, but yeah, I mean, I liked his tape, but you never know. I mean, I've seen those guys I've liked before in this camp, other camps where I've said this guy's a talented player. He goes to training camp and it doesn't work out. So just to see, how far he's come and him playing all over the place and the confidence they have to show in him played some left guard today. So a Banner and Fred Johnson, I think, are the two guys just because they've played really well. They've taken the right steps. And then a little disappointing as a core four. I know that's not a close battle yet, but Filer's going to win the job when I thought there'd be a little more competition than what there really was.
You'd be shocked if, at this point if Banner and Johnson do not make the 53, right?
I don't know if shock's the right word, especially with Fred Johnson. I mean, I like him. There's still some work to be done with him. Banner, I feel, has a really good chance to make it. Johnson, maybe a little less, to the point that I wouldn't be shocked by it, but I think he's got the inside track.
All right, how about the quarterbacks today?
Let's talk about Duck Hodges. He was airing it out last practice. I think he knew it. He was just throwing deep ball after deep ball, a 47-yard touchdown to Juju. I think he hit Trey Griffey for 35 yards. He did have one that should have been picked, a low liner that B.J. Locke dropped, unfortunately for him. But Hodges has that big arm, and he's not here just to tell his kids 15 years from now, or 25 years from now, however old he is, that he got to camp in with the Steelers. He wants to get a job, and we don't have to go through that whole discussion again. But Hodges is, again, and I said this after rookie minicamp. I said this in my pre-camp report before they hit Latrobe. He's not your typical number 4, and he's clearly proven that throughout these last 3 weeks.
All right, we'll see how that plays out. Look, glad they're going to be able to get him maybe some snaps, here in the second game, because Lord knows you're probably not going to get him snaps in that third one, and then in that fourth one, I don't know to me, if you better make your decision. You would hope to try to make your decision after 3 games, I would think. As far
It
as
didn't happen last year.
Yeah, I mean, they went into the last one, and Dobbs, that's what he evidently turned it on. Or did turn it on enough to win that number 2 spot there. So I don't know if it was that close as if we should believe Tom and it was actually that game. I mean, I can understand it, obviously if it was, but it'll be interesting to watch play. I'm not holding my breath. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to Hodges sticking around.
Sure, no, I get it, but they want to get a look at him, and he's played well. He's earned this look.
All right, somebody wrote on Steelers Depot in the comment section today that Hodges is going to be the one that succeeds Ben in a couple of years. Okay.
Well, all right then.
All right, running back.
Not a whole lot to note because they were in shells, no tackling today. I believe you're going to see Malik Williams get in as that last running back off the bench. He didn't get in last week. It was Trayvon McMillan. He's gotten a lot of work the last 2 days. Good skill set as a runner. Everything else, as I said before, is a little questionable with him. And then Trey Edmonds, some work at fullback today. So he's going to become a Swiss Army knife of sorts where he can run down kicks. He can be a backup personal protector on the punt team. Obviously, he can be a running back, a little bit of fullback today. Just kind of wear whatever hat he needs to wear to try to make this team. I don't think he's going to make the 53, but practice squad's a really, really good bet.
I think Bouchette went on the radio today. Somebody tweeted me and said something about Bouchette. Said Benny Snell better tighten up, or else he's going to lose his roster spot to Edmonds.
I don't believe that, but Edmonds does have some really special, value. So I think there's a better odds, and there's low odds, but better odds of them keeping 4 running backs than Snell losing a spot.
They can't. They're not going to cut Snell.
Yeah, no, they're not going to cut Edmonds. He's had a good camp. He had a good camp. I mean, I know that game wasn't the most impressive thing, but the line didn't really do many favors. And, yeah, it's one game. Yeah, I think Snell's been good. And he did well in special teams, and that was good for him.
And he also had a nice catch and run out of the backfield, too. People forget about that as well, too. All right.
Was it Durant Grant, last 4th-round pick that was cut?
Yes,
I know Fred
was.
Gibson, way back, was cut out, right?
Yeah, Durant Grant.
Just a number. It's rare for the 4th-round guys to get released.
All right, tight end.
Not a lot to note with Scotty and Gentry out today. Again, I don't believe either of those guys are going to play. Definitely not going to see Scotland Williams, and Gentry's going to be, I would consider him doubtful.
Game time.
And then Kevin Rader's a weird guy. He's gotten a lot of targets. His hands aren't great, but he's one of those just random guys. One shows up in every single camp that just has a lot of targets, and he'll get a lot of work. Him and Trevor Wood. This is the time to take advantage of the opportunity for those guys. Maybe not tape to make the Steelers, maybe tape to land somewhere else or get on the tryout circuit throughout the season.
That doesn't bode well for the running game this week. Them guys haven't played a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Rader's a decent blocker. Wood isn't very good at it, but
I thought Wood would be the better of the two, according to his tape.
Well, Wood has better hands, and they're both terrible route runners. Rader's a little better blocker, so Wood is a better with his hands than Rader. Rader's got a ton of drops.
Okay, wide receiver, you spoke Deontay Johnson vertical into existence, did you not?
Yeah, Deontay Johnson listened to this podcast. I guess like Sean Surratt, that's what they do.
Shout out to Deontay Johnson.
He got deep today. Now it's in shells, and they weren't maybe going at 100% speed, but still a 40-yard completion to beat Justin Lane, so it's good to see him win vertical, but obviously really did not do it in a truly competitive, padded practice. So that's the thing you want to watch with him. And Troy Griffey doesn't have a lot of receptions, but is good for making 1 or 2 nice catches downfield, a nice 35-yard gain also against Justin Lane today. High pointing the football, finding it, leaping, and snagging out of the air. So Griffey will make a play or two, but unfortunately he also only makes a play or two.
And look, we're not down on Deontay Johnson. It's just a realism of it, and has been since day one with him. Well, I mean, his college tape is incredible. In fact, we've talked about it several times. His 2017 tape was probably even better than the 2018 tape, thanks for him having a better quarterback to play with here. The fact of the matter is, Tomlin talked about it today. Ben talked about it after practice today. You got to get it. Being out there in OTAs is not enough. You got to be out there during training camp, and you got to be out there during the preseason games. They got to get good looks at you in all situations. And while he hasn't missed a lot, he has missed. And Tomlin talked a little bit about that today, and as did Ben. Ben, in so many words, said, "Look, this kid's exciting. He's talented." But with all that said, I mean, unless an injury happens or unless this kid just crushes it these next 3 preseason games, and even if that happens, the odds of him being a huge offensive contributor and playing a large amount of offensive snaps in his first few weeks of his rookie season are slim, are very, very slim. I hate to break it to people, but that's the reality of the matter with him. And Ben talked about, look, with these injuries, it's not uncommon. These kids go straight out from their college season right into prepping for the draft, bowl season, getting their body ready for the combine, getting ready for the draft, and then boom, you throw them right back into one of the hardest things is getting adapted to an NFL training camp. And it's not surprising they have these little nagging injuries, So I guess long story short, we told you so. He's it'll be a minor miracle if he contributes heavily at the beginning of the season. Go ahead.
I agree. It'll be at best a slow burn for him. And Johnson had this issue in rookie minicamp. He didn't practice at all in rookie minicamp with, I think, a hamstring that limited him. And I think maybe he was limited during some of OTAs too. So this thing's kind of followed him, or different versions of this injury, soft tissue injuries have followed him throughout. So he's missed a decent chunk of time. Now he can get back on that train, and they are going to run some 4 and 5 receiver sets this year, and that's going to provide opportunities beyond just the starters. But Eli Rogers, assuming he's going to make the team, which I think are really good odds, is might be next man up in that situation. So, yeah, it's going to be a slow start for Deontay Johnson. I'm not worried about that, but I think we just have to recognize that that's probably going to be the case.
It's a realization of what it is, the situation of what it is and what he is. Hey, don't be surprised if he's inactive week 1. You carry 6 wide receivers, and if he's not playing on special teams, he's not going to dress.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly.
I know people aren't going to like that. I like to hear that, but remember where you heard it first, right here. All right, the train's coming there, so I'll do a little bit of talking here. Let's see, we've gone through the wide receiver here. Ben also praised, obviously being able to get some work in with Moncrief and all like that. So moving on, let's see, we covered wide receiver now. What's left in wide receiver? It feels like you just mostly talked about Deontay Johnson there.
Yeah, that was the bulk of it. Juju had a really good camp. I mean, I just kind of overlooked that stuff because you kind of know it at this point, but just an excellent camp, top to bottom for Juju. And that's really about it. Tevin Jones, a little bit quieter at the end. I still think Jones has a good shot for the practice squad. I just think they like this guy, so we'll see what he does the rest of the way in games.
All right, moving over to, let's see, the defensive side of the ball. I think I read something from you where Buggs got a little bit of work with a better group.
Yeah, some first-team base reps as a 3-4 end today. Just happy with his camp. One of, I think, the most impressive standout guys. A lot of the rookies in general impressed, but he was certainly near the top of that list. Just really excited about what he can offer, and I think he's going to continue to play well the rest of the preseason.
You get these guys, these rookies, to come in and, A, not miss a practice, and B, show a little something right from the get-go and don't slowly progress. You got yourself something there.
Yeah, I think they definitely have something in Isaiah Buggs, 100%.
Okay, we'll move on over to outside linebacker where, let's see, they brought in a new kid, and you said he got right after it today, Sutton Smith, back going again. We expect him to play. We'll have to see about Ola. One would hope and think that him maybe just getting a little bit of rest today. And then obviously Tuzar Skipper is the other one left over there.
And it was Skipper that benefited from Ola not practicing today, got second team left outside linebacker opposite of Chicolo. So don't have a whole lot to note with that group in particular, but Skipper's, gonna benefiting from those reps that Dayne didn't get today.
And I would assume Skipper would, are we gonna see TJ Watt or Bud Dupree any?
You might see them
series?
for 2 series. Yeah, like a Barron type thing for 2 series. That's possible.
All right, we'll look out for that as well. All right, inside linebacker there. Good to hear Bush back. It sounds like, even though Barron missed today, sound like that might have been just a precautionary day off and all like that. So now the only question is outside of Vince Williams, who we don't expect to play, who's going to go?
Yeah, I was bummed that Vince couldn't get back in team today. He looks fine. I just feel like they're just being extra cautious with him. It'll probably be Barron and Bush again to start, and then Medikevich rotating in, Spillane too, Gilbert. We'll see if Gilbert III gets more reps. I think that when Tomlin talked about elevating reps for guys that played well previously, I think he's kind of mentioning someone like Gilbert, who's going to hopefully play more than end of game snaps like he did in Friday's opener versus Tampa Bay. So you might see. I wouldn't be mad about seeing Gilbert and Medikevich being that second group in, assuming that Bush and Barron are going to start.
That wouldn't hurt my feelings either. And I think the other guy, I think there were several guys that Mike Tomlin was talking about when he said that. I think Gilbert was one of them. I think Bugs might have been one of them. I think, who else?
Well, I mean, Bugs has already been second team, so I don't know if they're going to be able how much more they can elevate him unless someone's not playing. But yeah, Fred Johnson. Well, Fred Johnson's been second team. Well, he might actually start because of the way the lines are going to go. But yeah, I think that definitely guys like Tuzar Skipper too could be someone that played well. That's going to get that longer look along with guys like Gilbert III.
All right, the cornerback position, they're back healthy. I mean, we should see Artie this week, right? I mean, who else?
Allen.
Brian Allen, we should see this week as well too. So, kind of excited to see a couple of those guys. And obviously, Cameron Sutton was Cameron Sutton like one of the stars of camp?
He was. Johnny Holt, another name that may see some
Johnny Holt, that was the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah. But with the cornerbacks, Cam Sutton, I said it before. I think Tomlin's basically said it without literally saying it. Best camp he's ever had. I think they're showing more trust in him to play outside. He can still play in the slot. He's probably got a good chance for the dime roll this year, though we'll talk about that position a little bit more with the safeties. Artie Burns, a good day. Juju did have one nice long catch over him, but Burns just competitive in a lot of situations, and just another regular good camp for Artie Burns. And you just cross your fingers that it can translate. He'll probably be first man up at outside cornerback, maybe Sutton. We'll see how that goes. Justin Lane, people kind of were on my timeline talking about Justin Lane and getting burned, but I think like Deontay Johnson, these are both third-round picks. These are both underclassmen. Steelers drafted a ton of underclassmen this year, and I think we have to frame that and put that in context for their year one expectations.
That's a great point. Once again on that, these guys are a lot of these guys are technically seniors now. Bush, I mean, he has the pedigree and everything. I mean, you expect to be able to get him on the field as an underclassman. That's why he goes 10th overall in that situation. But guys like Johnson, guys like Lane, guys like Biddy Stell was underclassman, wasn't he?
Zach Gentry, underclassman.
Zach Gentry, an underclassman. I mean, you go down the list here, and you can understand. I think that's yet another reason to be kind of patient with Deontay Johnson here, as well. Okay, safeties, and we'll cover this more in depth in the morning, Alex. But Keith Butler was on with the Trib doing the interview the last day or two here ago, and was still talking about that secondary versatility. And talking a little bit more about how hopefully Steven Nelson can not only play inside, he can play outside. They want to be able to have a lot of moving around this year with that secondary. He talked especially with the safeties and Tom Brady not being able to pigeonhole your post safety and that kind of thing. So I hope they're trying to get themselves in a position. And once again, you've heard me talk about this on the podcast several times since the schedule was released earlier this offseason. I think it's advantage Steelers to some degree, whatever degree you want to call that, but it is an advantage that the Steelers play the Patriots early in Week 1 this year, because there's not going to be any legitimate tape on a couple of these new guys. What they now obviously people say, well, the Patriots going to
cuts both ways.
Right, cuts both ways there, but really because of the Patriots expected to be the dominant team. I just think it plays a little bit more into the Steelers' favor here. So. Be interested to see. Have you seen a lot of them try to be as versatile with their safeties and with their cornerbacks as they claim that they're wanting to be?
Not necessarily outwardly, but I just think inherently it's going to be a more versatile group because it's a more experienced group. Sean Davis, his second year at free safety, Terrell Edmonds, his second year in the league. I thought one of the biggest issues this defense had last year, and it got a little bit better, especially in that Patriots game. You talk about how did this defense hold Tom Brady and company in check. They were able to disguise their coverages because it was late in the year, and they were able to help, not tip their hand, pre-snap. They were able to disguise some stuff, drop some guys deep, or roll some guys, buzz them down to the flats that, at least gave the Brady something else to look at and have to process and make him think, hold on with the football, and that allows your pressure and your coverage to work. So I think just the natural experience of the group is going to help you add a veteran like Steven Nelson, a healthy Mike Hilton, another year under his belt. It's just going to help the whole versatility of the group. But speaking of that, because that's a very nice segue you gave me, Cameron Kelly, still played second team free safety today, but now that the lines and safety have kind of gotten healthier and Davis is back in it, Cam Kelly is now playing some slot corner again, and that's going to help him out with his versatility. I think he's got a really good chance to make this team, not only for that versatility, but of course how he's played in camp in the preseason as well. So he's got that free safety slot corner versatility this team's going to like.
It's going to be hard for poor Marcus Allen. It's going to be him or Jordan Dangerfield, I have a feeling, and Dangerfield's the more known commodity, especially as far as Danny Smith goes. Gonna be interesting to watch how the last 3 weeks here play out on that. But I don't have to. You don't have to guess who I have in a lead in that battle.
Yeah, same here. And it could also be an outside player too, a safety position they could add. So, it may be Dangerfield versus Allen versus the world. That seems to be a good way to frame it.
I'd be more surprised they added a safety than I would a tight end at this point, though.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth. It depends on how much more of a look you can get at Gentry and Scotland Williamson. If they can't play next week either, then yeah, you're really looking at the position. It's just going to depend on, I think, health of the group for the tight end spot. But yeah, both are certainly. We said that months ago. Two positions after the draft they haven't addressed well enough. Tight end, safety remains true today.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess that's through all the positions there. I mean,
Boswell kicked ball, and right, both of them 6-7 today, but Boswell is going to win that job.
All right, good. And Mike Tomlin says his plan is to rotate the kickers and punters once again, but that don't hold his hand to the fire there. That and that's you respect that because a situation might come up where there's a 52-yard field goal chance. And Mike Tomlin wants to see if Boswell can make it. And if it's not his turn up, it's going to be his turn up this time. Now I think it's more about let's put Boswell in as many what we deem tough situations as we can in these final 3 games because by now they know Matthew Wright's not going to be their kicker, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I like Matthew Wright. He's an accurate kicker. The leg strength just isn't there, and Boswell is again the known guy that's having a good preseason.
All right, pick me one winner, one loser on the offensive side of the ball for all of training camp.
I want to write about this for the morning. Some winners and losers for the offensive side of the ball. One, I wish I knew ahead of time. Who do I want to go with? I can't think of the best offensive winner right now.
Would it be Banner? Would it be Johnson?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a super obvious candidate unless I'm just blanking on somebody. I thought Banner had a really good camp. Fred Johnson had a really good camp, and obviously Juju had an excellent camp. Can I say Devlin Hodges? I know that might be
sure.
Just because he is at number 4, and the fact we're even having these prolonged conversations about a number 4 quarterback. I can't believe we are,
but go ahead.
It might be another 15 years before we ever do again. And so for Hodges to just continually meet those challenges and be so impressive, this team just felt compelled to play them in the middle of this crazy backup situation where you're still talking about Dobbs and Rudolph, and all of a sudden Hodges comes in stage left and starts throwing his hat into the ring. So I'd have to think about it some more. Again, I'll have the article in the morning on that. Matt File, an excellent camp too. But man, it might be Devlin Hodges.
All right, who's your loser? Who came in and laid the egg that you were expecting to turn out to be a golden egg?
Oh, wow, that's a complicated metaphor. Maybe a core four.
You just described my entire life, my 51 years on Earth.
Oh, wow. Maybe a core four. Ask me again tomorrow's podcast, because I'll have the post up, and I'll probably be able to not stumble over my words the way I am right now. I just saw a core four. That game against Tampa Bay was pretty unimpressive, and Filer's really locked in that right tackle spot. I thought there would be a much better battle than what it turned out to be.
All right, defensively, who's the guy?
Well, you could go with a defensive name. You got a ton of names there. You got Adene, Skipper, Cam Sutton. Give me Adene, I guess, just because that start, which is fantastic. The dude was just straight unblockable. But I mean, you got Bugs. I mean, you got Bush. Obviously, the ton of names you could throw in there. But a day they'd be a winner. A loser. Don't know about a loser.
I'll ask you about that in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Lane didn't have a great camp, but again, I do want to put that stuff in context. If I call him a loser, then I'm going to get 30 questions. Is he a draft bust? His team sucks at cornerbacks, and I don't want to have that in my life right now. Yeah, I don't know on a loser. That Marcus Allen. No, I do. Marcus Allen. I'd probably be the big loser there.
All right. What was what's your main takeaway, I guess, coming out of Trey? I mean, you've done this, isn't your first rodeo or your first trip to Latrobe here, so you've been through this several times now. What's your general feeling, your 30,000 view takeaway as camp comes to a close this year?
Yeah, it's crazy, Dave. 6 straight years of training camp. I think we're at like 95 straight practices or something like that. I would say what I wrote about this morning on Steelers Depot for Thursday morning about just all the good problems they have right now, deciding who's going to be your quarterbacks, your receiver depth, your offensive line depth, your defensive line, how do you want to get someone like Bugs on the field, your inside linebacker rotation, some decisions at outside linebacker. Secondary still a little up in the air, but I think you have your 6 corners and safety. Some guys are being competitive like a Cam Kelly. So just the good competitive nature of the entire group. Obviously, no major injuries. I thought how clean overall camp was. A decent amount of turnovers, but but still good quarterback play in spite of that. No running backs fumbled the entire camp. I mean, and they were healthy, they were available. So kudos to the running back group. So just how clean, crisp, competitive this camp was. And especially in the tragedy of losing Darryl Drake and this team trying to respond from that. But just really impressive work across the board.
You know, I asked you guys this, you and Matthew, this last night, DM and via direct message on Twitter there, saying that, man, is it, just feels like, with all that has transpired since, since week 17, basically, of the season last year to now, and obviously that includes the passing of Darryl Drake and all, and the trade away of Antonio Brown, and getting those quote unquote getting a circus to leave town, if you will. It has a little bit of kind of a special season on tap feeling to it, does it not?
It does. I mean, I'd love to say yes. It'd be such a great story, but
I mean, like Matthew wrote me back. Well, the script's already written there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in bed, so I didn't respond to that. I saw it, but I was like, I'm laying in bed trying to fall asleep. It does. The script is written, but they got to go out and do it. I mean,
sure.
These all sound nice, but we're going to be in week 8 of the regular season. We're not going to talk too much about training camp or the storyline or the script or whatever. We're talking about if they're winning or losing, and we know the path to win and lose games. To win, they have to be efficient in the red zone. You want to cut down on some of Ben's turnovers, especially in the red zone. This defense got to take away the football more. So those are all things that we really don't know, really can't answer. Can the guys that need to step up, will they step up? You feel confident about it, you feel good about the progression of guys like James Washington, but you just don't know until you know. So understand the sentiment, and I would love that to be true more than anything else. But I just, we'll see. I can't answer that.
Like my old man used to say, don't tell me about the labor pains, just show me the baby.
Yep, and that baby's a shiny Lombardi trophy.
Absolutely. But, I mean, look, overall, I mean, rank this camp, on a scale of 1 to 10. 8, 9? I mean, it have to be up there.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin with that. But, yeah, it would be on the higher end of things. It was a good camp. So, yeah, an 8 is probably fine. And, again, just no major injuries. This team is healthy. Hopefully that stays that way. Still got 15 days to go here before the preseason wraps up. But, it was a really good camp.
All right, let's roll through some of these final wrap-up email questions we promised to get to here. From BJ Pugh, what do you think about Landry Jones being the first player to sign for the XFL? Should Devlin Hodges follow suit? Look, we'll see, and congrats to Landry Jones, too. I mean, if you want one last shot to pull off a Tommy Maddox, that would be it. I still contend, and I think somewhere we got an email asking me about my thoughts on Landry Jones and all like that. Look, it's easier to look at this back in the rearview mirror now that last season's all transpired and we see how that Raiders game. But if and my thoughts on Landry are now able to be boiled down to that one Raiders game, okay? And my thought still is if Landry is your backup quarterback in that game and everything transpires the way it did up until that point where Ben went down, I think you have a lot better chance of Landry Jones winning that game.
Yeah, that might be true. I don't really think about that at this point, but point taken. But I think that is a cautionary tale for how we view, and this is going to be a more of a criticism of myself about this quarterback situation, because I know last year I was saying Landry Jones is going to make it. Yeah, Dobbs is doing all right, but Jones is the guy. He's the known player, and Jones is going to be safe. And that I was wrong. That's not the decision that they made. So I look at this Hodges-Dobbs situations where Dobbs is sort of like the Landry Jones, the more known commodity, and Hodges is the up and comer. And I don't want to sit there and say that Dobbs is safe, and because that's the same trap that I fell into last year. But to the point about Hodges with the XFL. He's not thinking about that. He's thinking about, can I get a job in the NFL? And he certainly could.
Can you believe we could go from your backup quarterbacks in consecutive years being one and done?
Yeah.
I mean, for years it was always Charlie Batcher or Byron Leftwich, depending on which one was healthy or whatnot.
Or Dennis Dixon. It was a Dennis Dixon era.
Right, and Bruce Gurkowski, and all like that. And now, I mean, I don't know what it says about the selection of Dobbs, though, if you move on from him completely, after this train. That's why I'm going to have to see it to believe it. And I guess it was the same last year when it came to Landry Jones. I would have never dreamed that they would have cut Landry Jones last year, but they obviously did, and he hasn't played since. So there's that. But we'll see how this plays out here, BJ. And yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what Landry Jones can do over there in the XFL. Bobby Price writes in, "Hey, David Knox, curious what chances you put on the likelihood Kevin Colbert adds a body to the 53 roster currently in another camp." Well, Bobby, we've been talking about that. How long, Alex?
It's been happening since 2015. He's got 10 trades in the month of August until the first week of the year. That's tied for the second most in the NFL with New England, only behind Seattle. So history says yes. We don't know who.
History says at least one body's coming from somewhere.
I'll say yes. I'll say they add somebody, tight end, safety, or the obvious ones. An injury can change things.
As far as putting a exact name to that, I mean that's obviously so tough to do at this point. But and look, I mean, you still got 3 games to go too. Guys can get injured, So right. I mean, we're not totally out of the woods here yet. So a lot can happen in the next 3 weeks here. But I mean, I wrote about it there in the start of about 6 weeks ago or so. That the history as it relates to this, they're probably going to add a body, at least one. All right.
August 23rd is when Colbert starts making trades over that time span. So that's the date I would start being on the lookout for some names coming in.
All right. He goes on to write, that tight end position is looking a bit sparse, and I wouldn't be comfortable hitching my trader to Vance McDonald staying healthy for an entire 16-game season. If it's not a tight end, what other positions mine would merit consideration? Obviously, safety. Bobby, we've talked about the backup safety job there. And look, if you're looking for something along the lines of a Vance McDonald this year, I'd kind of lower your expectations.
Yeah, I don't see it being a major player. It'd be a backup, whether that's a tight end or safety. But right now, those are the 2 positions clearly this team could add to. I can't even really make a case for another position right now unless an injury happens.
Absolutely. He says, phenomenal camp coverage as always this summer. Thanks for all you do, Steelers Nation. Here we go. All right, thanks, Bobby, for those kind words. Tamir Ahmad writes in, "Hey guys, congratulations on another successful training camp, and here's to the regular season. I remember asking questions about Cam Kelly's chances at 53. Do you guys still see a scenario where Pitt looks for a third safety still, or has Kelly loosened the tone of that conversation?" Once again, we're safety. I am less, and I've only seen him actually play one preseason game. Alex has obviously watched them all training camp. But I feel a little bit better about the safety position than I did a few weeks ago,
Yeah, I guess a little bit, just because you see these guys play and you just at least have a known idea of what these guys can do or are capable of, or you hear some of the reports. I don't know. I guess it would just depend what's available in the market. If there's some real clear, strong backup to take that spot,
it's not going to be Eric Berry.
No, it's not going to be Eric Berry. So it would just potentially depend on what's available. I think they could look for the top backup. I mean, Kelly would be a free safety. If you want to add a strong safety to that group, you might do that as a backup for Edmonds. We'll see. It just going to depend on what's available for a trade if they explore that avenue.
Tamir, if they do add a safety too, he better be special teams capable, and he better be 27 years of age or younger. That's what the Steelers look for when it comes to that kind of stuff. Thanks for the email, Tamir. Dominic Lamarca writes in, should we be more worried about Pouncey's injury? Nearly 2 weeks off with a suspected back that Tomlin won't speak about. Should set off alarms, don't you think? As a man over 30, the back is the most of my worries. Congrats on the anniversary, Alex. Nick from D.C. Well, look, Pouncey's back out there today, right?
He did miss 10 days. August 5th was his last practice, the Heinz Field one. But, I understand the question. Obviously, if he didn't practice today, that would have been a bit of a concern, but he's good to go.
If there was some concern there right now, Nick, that Pouncey, that this might be something to this, they would have already made a move to get somebody else in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's good. He might have gotten checked out. He did miss a lot of time, and he wasn't around the practice field for several days, but he's fine now.
They would have gotten a more experienced, cheap veteran in camp and going if they thought the alarms were going off, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Finney's, the reliable next guy out, but either way, Pouncey's good.
Right. All right, Josh writes in, which player helped himself the most at Latrobe? Which player hurt himself the most at Latrobe? I think that kind of plays into our winners and losers, Josh. But, I mean, you'd still stick kind of Ola and offensive side of the ball. Who'd you name on that side?
Yeah, I talked about Hodges helping himself a lot, putting himself in that conversation. Fred Johnson definitely showing what I thought he could do based off his college tape, and Marcus Allen hurting himself a lot. But again, I'll have that broken down into a neater way to explain it, winners and losers, for tomorrow morning on Steelers Depot.
Thanks for the email, Josh. Let's go to, let's see here, Brett Nile back with a book for us. Let's see. Okay, I think this is mostly about Christian Scotland Williamson and the in the extra practice squad spot. If he makes the 53 to start the season, if they decide to put him back on the practice squad at some point, would they still have the exemption? All right, I see where this is going, and you also have in here, well, what if he gets activated and all like that? Here's Brett. Here's my understanding of that rule. It is an extra exemption and an exemption only for him to be on the practice squad. In other words, if he does not make the 53-man roster, he can be the 11th guy on the practice squad, but he in no way, shape, or form can be promoted to the 53-man roster.
Is that how that works?
That is how my understanding of it. Think of the competitive balance here.
So he can't be elevated to the 53.
Right. He cannot be elevated to the 53.
No matter what. There's no reason.
No matter what. If you're going to use the 11th spot on him, then he can, because technically it's a competitive balance issue.
Yeah, it's an extra spot you could float around.
It's an extra spot. So go ahead.
Well, so that's interesting, because when I put Scotty on my 53, people were yelling at me a little bit, saying, well, put Scotty on the practice squad because he'll be exempt. You can keep him, the 11th guy. You can have 11 in your practice squad and then Gentry on the 53. But in that scenario, obviously, then Scotty's stuck there for the entire year. So in my scenario, you could be floating, where you could have Scotty on the 53, Gentry on the practice squad, and you could move those guys around if you need to.
If you put him on the 53, then you lose, to my understanding.
Yeah, you'll lose it. But then you can still move him. You can still have 10 in the practice. You could cut him and put him in the practice squad if you wanted to, needed to during the year.
Right. He can, as long as you only have a 10-man practice squad.
Right. Yeah, he's just a normal player at that point.
Right. But to my understanding, and people can double check me on this, my understanding for that foreign, what do they call that? International
pathway program
or whatnot. My understanding is that if he goes to the practice squad, he has to stay there all season. I mean, obviously you can cut him, but he just can't be on your. You can't be on your 53.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So that is how. And if you take a long, hard thought process after it, that makes sense because of the competitive balance, issue there. So Brett, hopefully I cleared that up for you there. Brandon Fry writes in, early game struggles. Dave and Alex, love the show, friends. Why did we look so bad in that first defensive series against Tampa Bay? Is the only explanation they had more starters in than us? And can you pinpoint more specific problems? Seems like everyone is pretty rosy picture of that game, which I mostly agree with, but forgets we look like garbage for a hot second there. If you're looking at that game and that defense and how they played, and you're worried about them giving up that drive to a first team, technically in the first team offense, don't. I mean, this is so vanilla in the first preseason games. Even Tomlin said today they're gonna game plan just a tiny little bit this week for Kansas City, which means they virtually did none of that last week. It's basically a scrimmage. So with all those kind of younger bodies out there, don't read too much into. I mean, look, you didn't have right to it Hayward. Geez, I mean Watt, Dupree, Hayden. I mean, you're missing all your starters there. So Brandon, don't read too much into that.
Yeah, and then Tampa Bay starter Jameis Winston, and you said they started Donovan Smith. I mean, they played some other guys, so that's what it's. Justin Lane was out there. He shouldn't have been out there, but he had to be out of necessity. So I'm not reading too much into that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go on to the next one here. Bryce writes in, last camp question is, hey, this is Bryce. You guys have done a great job of camp coverage. I've got two questions for you. And Alex, overall, how would you break down and assess what you've observed from Steven Nelson? Are you excited, tempered, or concerned, and why? And number two, now that camp is over, who are your top three rated first-year camp phenoms?
I don't even know about the top-rated phenoms. Again, I'll flesh some of this stuff out throughout the week. Nelson was good. I think he led the team or tied the team maybe with Sutton in interceptions with 3 or 4 of them. I know everyone got on him for those first 2 days, but I look more about what he did the last 4 years in Kansas City than what he did in 15 or 14 practices at training camp. And what he did at Kansas City was impressive. He's played especially well last year. Now he has been feast and famine. He may give up some big plays. I think that's still going to be a constant, but I think it was a really needed signing to get some ball skills and some guys that can make plays on the football, and that has not, my mind has not been changed on that through 14 practices.
All right, this one from Chris from Reno. Guys, with the changes the NFL made with the cut-down process from 90 to 53, how do you think the Steelers' approach has changed in the preseason evaluation? For example, would someone like Sutton Smith be given a longer look versus having to be an earlier wave casualty? Look, I mean, remember, this has gone on now for a few years, 90 to 53. This isn't the first year that NFL's gone 90 to 53 in one swoop. This is like the third or fourth year now that has happened. Look, I mean, it gave what did Kevin Colbert say about the whole Villanueva thing? That they might not have gotten a guy like Villanueva years ago because of the cut down, because him being cut early made it where they thought they could get back around to him and get him on the practice squad day. I had to go back and listen to what Kevin Colbert said. But as far as evaluation, look, the 90 just gives you more bodies to play with. Okay, and yeah, you can give some of these, but I mean, your overall thought process, you're not going to play, you're going to give those bottom end of the guys a lot of time in that first game. The second game, you want to give some of your starters some of the time, and then any guys that you deem moved up, maybe a level, to see them against competition in that second game. The third game, obviously, at least a half, you're going to want to take a look at your starters and then a good look at potential backups from there. And then the fourth game, you just you let all the kids play. Let some guys make a last minute push at the roster there. What did I miss?
No, I think you summed it up well. Yeah, Cocker was another one. I think he wasn't signed until after the 53 cut down date, but he was a 75 guy in Buffalo that the Steelers picked up. Yeah, go look at that quote on Villanueva. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of exactly what Corbett said. I don't think it changes much. I just think, like you said, it allows some of the real young guys to play in that finale. I thought it was always stupid they had to cut down from 90 to 75 right before the preseason game where you want 90 to 75 to play in that last one. So you don't have to play your starting offensive line that last preseason game, which was always just a silly way to go about it. So I think it just gives you a chance to evaluate some of those guys at the bottom of the roster more and let them put on some good tape for not only the team they're playing for, but other teams as well should they get cut.
All right, Gavin Marshall writes in a question for Alex about bugs, and I'm assuming this isn't cockroaches.
I hope not.
Hello,
Not your
Dave. Firstly, can I say that the podcast has been excellent again this offseason? Surely the site and podcast are now the premier resource for Steelers training camp information. Well, we hope regular season as well, too, Gavin. But appreciate the compliment there. It makes such a difference watching the preseason games when you know all of the depth guys that have been doing in training camp and where they sit in the depth chart. I'm sure that every Steeler fan is grateful for the work you guys put in. Definitely appreciate that, Gavin. I just want to know. I'm not sure if you have covered this, and if I missed it, apologies. If so, the knock on bugs in the draft process was his lack of motor. Taking plays off. Has Alex seen any signs of this issue? Have the position coaches or other players like Cam been helping Bugs to play with a higher motor? Very excited by the promise Bugs has shown and the prospect of him being a wrecking ball up front as long as he has that motor. Thanks again. I feel like giving you a shout out to the UK Pittsburgh Steelers fans Facebook group on the podcast would be cool. There are a lot of listeners of the podcast on that group. So shout out to the UK Pittsburgh Steelers fans Facebook group. We love you. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. It's so cool to see the support not only across the U.S. but across the globe. It's really something else. I haven't made a special point to look at Bugs' motor. I think it's been fine. I haven't seen any issues where it's been a problem, and I don't think that Cam Hayward specifically tells Isaiah Bugs run to the football. It gets preached, I'm sure, by Cole Dunbar, but it's kind of you watch these guys do it. When I talked about Cam Hayward and Villanova getting that little scuffle way back early in camp, and I think that just kind of proved that how much camp mattered to two guys that are as locked in the spots as locked in can be. When you see Stephon Tuitt at the end of a practice, at the end of I think that 9th or 10th practice that they had early on in camp, running down Mason Rudolph to force an incompletion on a screen, chasing Benny Snell out of bounds and hitting him when he probably shouldn't have even done it in the first place. So I think it's just something that you just know, because if Tuitt and Hargrave and Hayward are doing it, then I have to do it too. I have no excuse. So I think it's something that gets held, you're accountable for in the film room. I'm sure they point out loafs and guys that don't run and say, hey, you didn't do a good enough job there. But I don't think it's something that has to get talked about directly. It's just something that you see everyone else do. And if the guys making $10, $11 million are doing it, you, the rookie, you better do it too. So I think that's just how it works.
All right, last one here from Danielle Russell. Daniel, you'll get the last one here. Good day, boys. I think it sounds like he might be from over Australia way there. Anyway, just wondering on Alex's thoughts on the overall quality of the team's draft and undrafted free agent class. Do you feel like you've seen enough to know if this is a better group than last year? Dan.
There's a long ways to go for that. I'm encouraged by the group. I think the rookies overall were solid. Obviously, Bush played really well. Johnson and Lane may be quieter, and we talked about their issues and why they're not playing maybe as some people would like them to, but I think they're still players that have talent. Benny Snell, I thought, had a good camp overall. Bugs obviously played well. Ulysses Gilbert flashed in the Tampa game. So I like where those guys are at. The undrafted guys, Fred Johnson had a really good camp. That's probably one of the biggest UDFAs that's sticking out in my mind right now. But we'll have to evaluate that the whole way through. When we're at week 17, we're not going to talk about camp with the rookies. We're going to talk about what they did to help during the season. So that's an ongoing evaluation and process that I'm not going to answer with any finality right now, but overall, good camp for a large chunk of the rookies.
One final shout out to Len Testa, Alex.
Yeah, Len Testa and Touring Plans. Again, a longtime sponsor for us. Go to touringplans.com if you want to plan a trip to Disney for the wintertime. I assume that's when most people in Western PA want to head south, which is a pretty good idea based on PA winters. But been a huge support. And again, thank you to Tim Rice and thank you to just everybody that's helped out and given us a shout out. It really, really means a lot.
And everybody, Matthew, Nick, Tom, Daniel, David O, Josh Carney, who are we missing? Melanie, girl surgeon, everybody helps out.
Michael K. Reynolds with the spin.
Michael K. Reynolds with the spin. He'll be back again this year. Thanks for making the site, making my job easier, making Alex's job easier. And Alex, for the 6th year in a row, you're my training camp phenom.
All right, I better do something during the regular season at some point.
No, seriously, I could not imagine not. You really paint such a good picture of that every day, and I feel like I know what happened. People say, well, you do this podcast, because, this, that, and the other. You know who this podcast helps? Me.
Fair enough.
And it just so happens to help, 13,000 other people as well, too, who download it, So definitely appreciate that, Alex, as usual. And
we'll have full stats and all that in the next couple of days. We'll finish up the stats and all that and talk about pony and 4 receiver sets. I'm curious to put the numbers on those. So we'll have a lot more camp wrap-up stuff next couple of days here.
All right, Alex and I will be back in the morning with a regular episode of the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show, The Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. How do you like us now? If you feel like you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Hey, do you want a year's subscription to SteelersDepot.com without having the ads on the site? For $25, you can have that. Just go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar, and ta-da, you help us, and you get a version of the site without any ads on it. So that it's a win-win situation there. Alex, once again, thanks for all your help. This will be the final edition, special edition of this year's Training Camp Terrible Podcast. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.